show of hands, who knows? Jake is already ready. Who here knows somebody who's actually been to SickKids? Okay, so quite a few of you. Now, who's actually been to SickKids for themselves? Okay, that's pretty much a good chunk of you as well. It's kind of like actually like me and Jake. We both have a backstory. We both have a history with SickKids, and I think I'm just gonna get into mine right now. So some of you guys know my story already. When I was 12 years old, I went to the washroom. I saw blood in the toilet. Pretty much ever since that day, my life changed. 2 months later, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis disease. So if you don't know what that is, that's a disease in the large intestine. And it's an autoimmune disease, so I was really rough time with that. A lot of pills, a lot of sickness. I would kind of fluctuate in weight as well. So it was a pretty rough time for me, and I think it was just really tough, and that's why I went down to my final option, my last option. Doctor's like, yeah, we tried all the pills, let's go for an ostomy bag. To be honest, the day before my surgery is the only time I knew what it was. I wasn't trying to psych myself out. I was like, this is gonna be much better for me, no more pills, and pretty much at 16, I got an ileostomy bag, and I think it's been one of the greatest things for me. I've got healthy again, and I'm really proud of having it. So what SickKids means to me is, I don't know, it just kind of was a second home for me at one point. I would go in a lot. Whenever I was sick, I'd feel comfortable, I guess as much as comfortable as you can be at a hospital. And that's why it means so much to me. Ever since I want to give back, whether it be in social work or child and youth care worker. And I think that's why PR kind of called to me. Being PR for SickKids, that'd be kind of a dream of mine. So I think me and Jake, have accomplished a lot so far. But you guys know my story, at least now, but maybe even before too. But what you guys don't know is maybe Jake's story. And Jake also has a backstory as well. But actually, sorry, quick question. Sorry, that picture right there, I took it in front of the ACC. So it was a SickKids event, and it was like for Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. So that was the jersey that I got, and yeah, that was just a cool picture. So here's Jake's story.
So my affiliation with SickKids goes back to 2012. I was in the 10th grade. I was 15 years old. And growing up, I had a condition called pectus excavatum. And what that meant was my chest, it was inward instead of outward. It's actually a relatively common condition. You may actually know people who have it or have a similar built chest. So essentially, I was growing up with a chest that was not outward, it was inward, like a bowl. And although many people who suffer from the condition don't have any internal ramifications, no medical consequences, I had a very severe case of it. And although it may have not caused me actual medical distress, growing up as a teenager with an awkward chest is not something that is great for your confidence. So I went for consultations with my family doctor, and they said if you want to get a surgery for it, you'd have to go to SickKids. So I go to SickKids, and they approve me for surgery. And what they give me is a procedure called the NUS procedure. Beforehand, they warned me that this surgery is a very, very painful surgery, and that it's going to feel like a truck when you wake up from the operation. My case was very severe, so they had to give me 2 bars across the chest. So essentially what the procedure is where they take 2 metal bars, or 1 metal bar, depending on your severity, and they put it across your chest, they open up your chest, they put a bar through it, and they pull up your chest like that. So I had 2 bars going through me, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go through with this surgery, I wanna get my chest fixed. Anyways, the surgery commences, I wake up, and it is hell. The pain is excruciating, it's more painful than anything I have ever experienced in my life. And it was just one big ordeal. The epidural that they gave me wasn't working, so I was feeling the full thing when I woke up. I was feeling all the pain. And it was hours and hours until they got me morphine. Doctors were coming in, they're trying to fix the epidural. And I'm waiting for this morphine, I'm screaming, I'm like, get me this goddamn morphine, because I'm in so much pain. Sure enough, they get me the morphine, and I begin to recover. I'm in the hospital for about 2 weeks, and I am released. Still in pain, but on a road to recovery. Not long after, probably about a week or two after, I start getting very weak, and my breathing slows down. I start to have a very hard time functioning because I can hardly breathe. Next thing I know, I'm being rushed back to SickKids, where they think I'm going to, they get a crash cart because they think I'm about to go code blue. I find out that my lungs were full of fluid. They pulled out, and they put me in another operation with a chest tube to get out all this fluid. Turns out I had 1.5 liters of fluid in my lungs, and my lung capacity was barely functioning. So I was back in the hospital again with an infection and a very damaged lung, and I was back for another 2 weeks of recovery. Finally, after that ordeal, about maybe a month and a half in the hospital, I was finally released and on the road to recovery. And 2 years later, when I was in my senior year of high school, I finally got the bars removed out of my chest. And as far as any visual concerns, I have a normal-looking chest now, which is great. But I still have nerve damage and a couple other complications from it, but nothing that severe. But overall, I've had it was a relatively short period of time that I was with SickKids, but it was definitely very memorable and something that I look back on with either great fondness and great struggle. But yeah. So now I'd like to go into the history. Is it to move to the
I'll show you the second.
yeah, that's it. Move into the history of SickKids. So SickKids Hospital has a very rich and diverse history that dates back to the year 1875, when a Toronto-based Bible study group, a women's Bible study group, led by a lady named Elizabeth McMaster, rented a 11-room house in the Toronto area. They set up 6 iron cots and declared the hospital open for the admission and treatment of all sick children. That same year, they received their first patient on, I believe, April 3rd, and throughout the rest of the year, 44 more patients were admitted to the hospital. Eventually, within the next year, the demand for services became so high that they were forced to move to a larger facility. And unfortunately, that facility was still too small to keep up with the demand that people had for their hospital. And in 1891, a man named John Ross Robertson, the head of the Hospital Board of Trustees, opted to move SickKids to a new 4-story location on the corner of Elizabeth and College Street. And this is also where the hospital was given the unofficial name, the Victoria Hospital for Sick Children. Moving on into the early 1900s, in 1918, the Nutritional Research Laboratory was founded. And the research they did there led to the development of a pre-cooked baby cereal called Pavlum. And although it tasted really bad, it helped save thousands of infants and children's lives from numerous diseases and, of course, death. They also made many content standards for a lot of Canadian foods, such as agriculture, flour, and dairy, or bread rather. So SickKids, another thing SickKids is known for is their very active productivity during the polio epidemic in the 1930s. And at that time, workshop staff were working very heavily creating numerous iron lungs that were used throughout Ontario. And the orthopedic center of the hospital created over about, I think, 3,000 braces and splints during the epidemic in the span of about 6 weeks. And moving on to the 50s, the hospital, 1951, the hospital finally moved to its current location on the corner, or on 555 University Avenue. And it was at this time that SickKids switched their focus from a nutritional research standpoint to the correction of congenital defects. And within 3 years, the actual research institute was established. Now, over the years, SickKids has become known as pioneers of many different surgical techniques that have become very innovative and still useful in the medical world today. A great example of one of those techniques was the Salter technique, which was used to fix dislocated hips for children. And another thing that they did was in the 1960s, they did something very unique by opening the very first intensive care unit in North America that catered specifically to critically ill infants and newborn babies. And once the 1980s came around, with scientific and medical advances, the SickKids researchers were able to identify and clone the genes that were known for causing a lot of congenital defects such as muscular dystrophy and cerebral palsy. Now, finally, into the present day, in 2013, the Peter Gilligan Center for Research in Learning was opened. And this building is located a mere few steps away from the hospital. And it's a location where many researchers and learners can come together and share ideas that may one day change the way child health care is implemented. Before this center was opened, many of SickKids researchers were spread across the city in various different buildings. So now, being united in one building altogether, they can put their ideas together and possibly change the world. So, moving from there, SickKids is also known for having a foundation, the SickKids Foundation, and I'd like to give a little brief synopsis on what the SickKids Foundation does. So the SickKids Foundation was founded in 1972, and since it was established, it has grown to become one of Canada's largest charitable funded child research institutes in the country. And at their core, the goal of the SickKids Foundation is to help and fight for the medical needs of all children in need. And as the years progressed and they started to garner more revenue, SickKids has been able to accomplish many technological and scientific advances. And all of these advances are thanks to the numerous people who have donated generously over the years. And as time goes on, the more they can improve their infrastructure and expand it, the more people that they can help. SickKids believes that if they can extend their reach further than the city of Toronto and possibly the world, it's their best weapon of helping any child in the world that's in need of health care and medical treatment. And final little fact is in the fiscal year of 2016, the SickKids Foundation invested $137 million in healthcare research for children and learning and care. So now we'd like to show you a little ad that is for SickKids.
Yeah, so it's for their Mother's Day campaigns. Just came released up pretty recently.
All right. Yep, 1 minute.
Sorry. Oh.
No chocolates, no jewelry. I don't need a spa day. Mommy doesn't need flowers. Mommy doesn't need any of it. I don't need chocolates. I don't need flowers.
I want candles. I want brunch. I want none of that.
I don't need a night out.
Nothing. I don't need a fancy dinner.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. Nothing.
I want none of it. Nothing. Nothing but for my baby to get better. That's what I want. I want him to come around to me and say, Mama, I'm home.
So there are many ways to donate and give back to SickKids. As you may know, SickKids their donation bins are found all over the city, and that's one way to give back. But another way to give back is to go online, and there's numerous links that take you there. You can donate money just straight out of your pocket, or you could donate to other causes like little packages, like little gifts that you can donate and stuff like that. And of course, you can also volunteer, give back to the hospital, become affiliated in a more personal manner. But yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's also Mother's Day packages as well. With that ad right there, you can buy like special packages for your mom. So like, there's also like some massage packages and like a night out. I think it is for like $30. Just like get her a night out to a movie, stuff like that. So I think the adults go through so much when their kids are so sick. So I think it's time to give back to them as well. And you don't have to only donate money, you can also donate your time. So there's also the volunteer experience, and you can join our family tree, which is a great way to give back. You can, there's a lot of events that SickKids has. You can fundraise, so there's a lot of different things that we all can do. Now these are like my favorite ads coming up, SickKids Versus. This is a really fantastic campaign. I mean, you see all these kids, and you know, they're really strong. But one thing that they don't really show is obviously what's behind the camera. So when you get sick, sometimes you feel weak, sometimes you're helpless, because literally one day can change everything. I mean, it's hard enough to deal with it when you're older or an adult, but imagine going through it when you're a few months old or when you're 8 to 18-year-olds. Some of them haven't even gone through puberty yet, and they're just starting to find out what life is like, and they're already kind of behind the ball. But this ad right on the left-hand corner, we don't give up bravery beads, they're earned. I think it really spoke to me. Their will and their bravery allows them to keep pushing forward. Their tears, their blood shed, it's gonna make them stronger than ever. You know, I think they're sick of trying to be normal because they're extraordinary. They're going to continue fighting to be healthy again. Some of them will lose their fight, unfortunately, and some of them will barely make it out alive, but that doesn't make them any less strong. These children are the strongest people you'll ever meet in your life. With SickKids Versus, they aren't up against the ropes and they don't have their gloves up. No, Versus shows that they're on the attack. They're gonna throw their hardest punches with support of the wonderful doctors and nurses that we have at our disposal. And the amazing support of their family and friends. You know, that family that would curl up on that little bench in admissions, or the parent that would sleep on the chair and merge. But even with all that young support, these young super boys and super girls, they may get knocked down, but they're trying to get back up, and they're gonna get back up like they always do. That monster up against them, well, they have all the magnificent care, the boundless amounts of support, and one badass kid to face. There's no use in doubting them because they're gonna come out on top. They're strong, they're brave, and they're undeniable. And with that, we're also trying to build a new hospital. That's why SickKids Versus the Limits. So on October 27, 2017, that's 2017, SickKids had a $1.3 billion fundraising campaign to build a new hospital. And we've got a lot of donations and from a lot of people, which is great, and a lot of organizations. But actually pretty recently, on March 23rd, the Ontario government invested $2.4 billion to build SickKids of the future. So I just want to give a round of applause for that amazing experience and a charitable donation. So in a little bit here, I'm going to ask everyone to take a picture. Me and Jake are going to donate some money. We're going to donate $40 to the SickKids Foundation. It's not a lot, but every little bit helps. And if you guys want to give back, you guys can have the hashtag #FundTheFight or #HungerFundTheFight, and just with you, I can tweet it out or you can Instagram it, whatever you guys want to do. If you guys want to follow SickKids on social media, that's their links right there. They're also on YouTube and LinkedIn as well. So I just want to end it off with this one little part. You know, I couldn't find the names for most of those kids on that Versus ad. I didn't want to just call them kids. I wanted to say their names. I wanted to give them the names to their faces, their brave faces. But I did find one, and there's this little boy here. His name is Hartley Bernier. And he's 7 years old. So he has an ostomy bag just like me, and he's also has the same company. That's Hollister too. I didn't explain earlier, but an ostomy, ileostomy is your small intestine sticking outside your body, where it collects number 2, basically. So But you know, I can imagine maybe seeing those ads, seeing those kids can make you really feel sick to your stomach, and it's really emotional. That's why we at SickKids are gonna make sure that no kid is ever sick again. So you might say this is impossible, but we're all Team SickKids. So let's defeat it together. Impossible? Yeah, doesn't know what it's up against. Thank you for listening and watching. So take a picture of all of us.